Okay, we have here a Fichet-Bauche M2i safe lock. I've got a key right here. The key turns 360 degrees to unlock and then lock up. And it kind of behaves like a tubular lock in that there are 7 wafers, 8 positions. And so when you pick it, you can only really turn it 45 degrees before everything resets, and you've got to pick it again. So really, to do 360 degrees like I just did, you need to pick it 8 times in succession. So I'm not going to be doing that in one take, but I'll do 45 degrees, right? So it looks like that. That'll be just what picking it once looks like. Okay. We'll start with some tension. And I'll get a pick here. Let's start, I'll count from clockwise, so 1, 2, 3, this is wafer 3 right there. Start again, finding my position. Okay, so there's a push on 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'll work those wafers for a bit. Each wafer has 2 degrees of freedom. You can rotate it and push it back. So I'm trying both just to see if I can get some movement. Try to rotate out first. And a big push. 5. So 3's kind of settled in, 4 is getting close. We're pushing 5, and then 6, not really binding yet. 3, 4, 5, 6. Pretty good. Now I picked this lock before, so I roughly know the binding order. These 4 levers usually need to get to place first. And that was remarkably quick, but I think we're there. Yeah, you see all of them are jiggling pretty well. So my tension is slipping a little, so I'm just going to tighten up here and readjust. And then we'll see how the other wafers are doing. One more check after tightening. Yeah, I like what's going on there. Okay, so let's now look at 2. Pick is stuck, but 2 is definitely binding. There we go. Click on 2. Click on 1. Seven's not quite binding yet, but it's trapped in a false gate. So I'm going to have to address that at some point. Okay, now I'm in a deep false set. every wafers and gate except 7. So now it's going to be interesting picking out of this. First I'll tighten one more time. And we're definitely going to need the float pick this. And get in position. See if we can't start getting some movement. Okay, so 1, jiggling it in its false gate. Something dropped. Pushed 1 past. Not sure if that's set. And we need to get rid of this tensioner to figure out what's going on. So what dropped? 3, 4, 5, 6, 2. 1 dropped. Okay. Okay, let's click on 1. I think everything except 1 is set. So I push 7 past its false gate into its true gate. And now, okay, 1 is overset and it's binding hard. Okay, so I'm gonna definitely want to float pick that as well. Trying to get a good position. Maybe over here. No, why couldn't I get this to work? Seems like a good position if I can get up here. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, now 1 is overset. See if I can't jiggle that loose. It's really in there. Really must have pushed it down hard. There we go. Told you it wasn't going to be that impressive. That's 45 degrees right there. And how to tell that? Well, one thing we can do is we can try to use the key. Let me see, the key will not move because you see the proper bitting orientation would be to turn it this way 45 degrees. Now it's lined up to where it should be, but the casing will not let me insert the key like that. So putting it in like this, it's 45 degrees off, and so it won't work. All right, well, we can see in a little more detail when we've got what's going on. So let's get that set up. Let me do a few things. Let me remove the focus, zoom out a little bit. This vice out of the way. Okay, I'm going to remove my mirror here, and then let's reposition the camera. Okay. A little bit better focus. Let's zoom out. Okay, that's pretty good. And then let me just get a gutting tray here. Actually, you know what? There are so many big pieces to this lock because I've got all the bolting on here that I'm just going to start taking it apart here, and then I can clear some things off as we need space. How about that? Okay, so the first thing is you see these 4 bolts that we need to zoom out again. Huh? Here, how about that? That comes out on the other side, so I just hand tighten these 4 bolts. That's 1. That's 2. That's 3. And then 4. And with that, this plate's going to come off. And you see here's the main bolt. And it just comes off here. You see it's driven by that cam. And to get the cylinder out, we're going to need to take this cam off. And then there are 6 screws that have fastened the cylinder in. So I'll start, I think this is a hex here. And then one other here. Okay, that's got the cam. Then we're left with that. And that is a Phillips 6 screws. So let me do it like this. Okay. And with that, this piece should be able to come off. Okay. And then we're left with the core. So, just to keep things a little simpler, I'm gonna remove some of this hardware. 2, 6, make sure I have all of the pieces. So 6 screws, 2 here, and then the cam, 4 nuts and bolts. The bolts and the plate. Okay. And now I will get a gutting tray to play. This is not easy to take apart. And as you can imagine, not easy to put back together. All right. And I'm going to be very careful because this is not my lock. I am very grateful to Trebor who lent me this lock to pick. And let's see, I think I'm going to turn it over. And I want you to note, you can see that little notch there. That's the first position. That's where there is no wafer. And then there's 7 wafers along those others. Now, there are a lot of ball bearings and springs here. So we're going to be careful. I'm going to very gently lift the cover off. And we'll see our first 3 ball bearings. See, there's nothing to this, really. Put it off to the side. And you can see we have 3 ball bearings that help us basically turn the core there. And got 3 springs. Okay. Now, if you look carefully at this cylinder, this top piece, that's where there is no wafer in here. It's empty. And so you can see the lock is in a locked position. I'm going to rotate it back 45 degrees. Okay? So this is the state it was in before I picked it. And just to show you that that was what happened, I'm going to put the cover on because now the key should work. I don't have the ball bearings in there or the screws, but it should be enough for me to hold it together, and you can see everything's turning very nicely. Just to prove to you that the lock was indeed picked 45 degrees. Okay, and now you can start to see some of the interesting parts. You can see in the body here all these, got a pick here, you can see all these serrations. You know, especially as I'm turning this clockwise, these are all the serrations that I was dealing with. Okay. And then you can see how this lock works. There are all these prongs at the end of each wafer, and it's got a ridge in there that grabs the serration. And you can see each one of these needs to be both rotated like there and pushed like there in order to match the grooves in here and turn. And so here, where's that key? You can see when I push the key in, everything rotates and then pushes so that they're all perfectly flat and at the same elevation. And you can contrast that. If I were to put the key in wrong, which I can do because the cover's off, now you can see they're all, it's the wrong bitting. They're all different rotations and depths. That's how the lock works. Interestingly enough, there are no notches on the other side. So when you rotate or pick this lock counterclockwise to lock the lock back up again, it's not as challenging because you don't run into any of those anti-pick notches. All right, well, here's where things get interesting. These 3 screws hold everything together, and I'm going to do, this is a trick I learned from Panda Frog, who has a video of this lock. I'm going to use a rubber band to hold all these wafers down on that side. And I'm going to wrap around on the top twice. Okay, this is going to help things getting a little out of hand, hopefully. All right, and then I'm going to take these screws out. Actually, before I turn the list, you can see there, what we're about to get into is there are going to be 2 ball bearings per wafer. And you can see the ball, well, the first ball bearing is between these springs, and each of the tips of the wafers, and the second ball bearings are deeper in the lock. We've got 2 of the screws. Here's the third. Okay. All right. Here goes nothing. Very gently, we're going to take this thing out. Okay. So here now you can see all of those wafers, and you can see the second set of 7 ball bearings. You see how they're just resting there? And if this rubber band weren't holding those in, they would be rocketing out. So I'm going to start at the opening here, and I'm going to go clockwise, and I'm going to take the wafers out. And I'm going to want to get to this cap. This cap in the center is holding everything in, but there's too many wafers around it to get at directly. So I'm going to start here, and you can see that ball bearing is now free. Let it fall out right here. Okay, and then as I pull this wafer up, the second ball bearing shot on a spring on the floor. So I'm going to pick it up right here. And I'm going to be more careful with the rest of these, but you can see that's what we're dealing with. Here's the wafer and there's the spring. So let me gently get the spring out. The spring's very long. And then I can fully pull this wafer out, and that's what they look like. Really just has the notch here. And this piece here is what I've been manipulating with my pick. So I've been doing this, right? And so I can rotate one way, I can rotate the other way, and I can push. That's what I've been doing. And then one ball bearing helps in the contact here between the wafer and the spring. The other ball bearing sits in here and allows a point of rotation. So that's what's going on there. Anyways, that's wafer 1. And I'd like to keep all these guys together, so I'll put these down here. 2 ball bearings per wafer. All right. So now I know I want to get that cap out, but I think I might need to take another wafer out to get there. So let's go with 2. So ball bearing got stuck right here. Let me see if I can get it out. Good. And then let's pull it out. There we go. That's the key. If I use my thumb, it'll prevent it from rocketing across the room. Much better. Learn from my mistakes. Don't let the ball bearing shoot across the room. I'll put that spring there. And then here we are. Wafer 2. Okay. At this point, I'm going to try to take this cap out. Well, you know what? I've been doing pretty good. Let me go a few more until it gets hard. And then I just like how that cap's holding everything in for me. That's getting hard. All right, I lost one ball bearing, right? It fell right back in. Here it is. Went under my tray. Here we are. All right, maybe I can finish this one. Okay, got my finger on that ball bearing. See if I can let it come out. Nice, on my finger. Came out with the spring. Then we can get wafer 3 out of there. Okay. All right. Keep on going. Another spring. Another ball bearing. Another wafer. It's number 4. And my other ball bearing is right there. Okay. Onward, number 5. First ball bearing. Oops, went in the wrong place. Second ball bearing. Spring. Wafer 5. Okay, onward. One ball bearing. Second ball bearing went under my tray. Spring. Wafer 6. And that ball bearing, I think, is from wafer 7. Yep, it popped out from wafer 7. Oh, that went across to the floor. I was doing so good, so close. All right, wafer 7. At this point, I'm done with this rubber band. Okay. And we've got a few more things going on here. There's a cap that can come off. And it's interesting, I didn't need to take it off to get the wafers out, but it does need to be off in order to get them back in. So we're going to take that out. There are 2 little posts here on these sides. What else can we do? There's a shaft in here. Kind of holds everything in place inside. Helps provide some stability. And then this is just now an empty single piece of metal, the core. Now I did 2 ball bearings short. One is right here. That one came from lever 6. And then I think I see the last ball bearing over there on the floor, but I'm gonna pick that one up after I finish shooting. Let's see what's left though. This piece. Now this is really interesting. If you rotate this little piece of metal, you can see there are ball bearings sitting in there. 2 big 4mm ball bearings that look like they're the same size as these first 3 that we took out. You keep on going, there's another hole there with 3 tiny ball bearings, 2.5mm, that we've been shooting all over the place. And if you keep on going, there's 3 more. They come out. You see 2 came out. Where'd the 3rd go? Might still be in there. Yeah, okay. 3 more ball bearings. Now, I don't have a good explanation for what these ball bearings are doing because there's nothing really going on in here. It's not functional. So my guess is they're actually extras. If you need to service this lock for whatever reason, there's some compassion, I guess, the designers bestowed to help with this. Either that or it's a warning, because when you first start taking apart this lock and you might have inadvertently turned these ball bearings are the first ones that fly out. And then finally, there's one more piece here, and I think I have to cover with my finger. Let's go very slowly. There's a very powerful spring here. Yeah, here it is under my finger. Now we can take this sleeve off. And this spring and this last ball bearing won't come out. maybe I need to use a pick. There we go. Come on. A little stuck there. That's a little odd. Oh, there we go. All right. That one does serve a purpose. When you stick the key in here, there's a little hook there. And so that ball bearing on the spring helps the key settle into place before you turn it. Anyways, this is one solid piece of metal. This is the front of the housing. And at this point, the exception of that one ball bearing on the floor, we've got this lock gutted. That is the Fichet-Bauche M2i. Just do a final close-up on some of the parts.